holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is achieveradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/achieveradio.
Hi, how are you today, Joseph?
It just got very fuzzy and I can barely hear you. And I saw this was happening as the show started. It just all went, so I could barely hear you.
Sorry. Well, last time that happened, it kind of all clicked in. So hopefully that'll happen again.
Now, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if I'm staticky or if you can hear me.
Very well.
You can.
Yep,
okay, it's all static on my end all of a sudden. Yeah, I don't know why. I was just talking to Bill, and as soon as the show started, that's what I started to hear was this real low static.
Well, today is a good day.
The whole thing's real low static.
Do you want to log out and then log back in?
Oh, so much better now. All of a sudden, there you are. Now, can you hear me?
Okay, that's what happened. Yep. I heard you all along.
All of a sudden, boom. Yeah, all of a sudden, as soon as now it's fine. Oh, it's better. It's a lot better. Let's put it that way.
Good. So today I thought we would discuss, first of all, I want to say that Joseph is my co-host and has been for several years. And he is on with me 3 weeks of each month, and then, 2 weeks of each month. And then the third week, I'm on by myself and we do angel readings. But today our topic is mystical healing. What is mystical healing? And are you a natural mystic? And who is Charlie Goldsmith? And why do some miraculous healings happen for people with cancer and others not? Obviously there's a lot of components involved in that, but does faith increase the spiritual healing? And understanding that it isn't just Christianity, because there are just as many Muslims healing miraculously from cancer with prayer, and Judaism. It is not just a Christian thing. And of course, we offer in-depth guidance with compassionate, heartfelt readings for anyone that calls 602-666-6027. So that's what I have. Joseph, how about starting with your little, the kind of prayer? Yes, could you start with yours? Okay.
Inhale, and then you exhale. So we'll on these words, we'll inhale, and then the following phrases we'll exhale. So we'll do: I bring the cosmic forces into my body, or into my being, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. And then we exhale there. Okay, so I bring the cosmic forces into my being, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. I bring the cosmic forces into my being, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. I bring the cosmic forces into my being, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. Protect me with your white light, and help me to be my best. Thank you.
Yes.
And you put your arms like this and you say, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's an ancient way of giving great thanks.
And there is another meditation that I'd like to do for those that may be having problems with flu or colds or anything that has to do with a psychological trauma. If you will, close your eyes or focus on a place in your room that is comfortable and imagine a beautiful white healing light coming down from above, entering into the top of your head and surrounding your heart with beautiful healing energy. And you can see it and feel it, and it becomes reality. Now send that same beautiful light from the top of your head to the tips of your fingers, to the tips of your toes, so that any kind of flu or cold or sickness can now, through the white light entering into your body, begin to have healing components for your recovery. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, Joseph, why do you
Very nice.
feel that faith is something that has to do with miraculous healings?
Well,
And
I
what do
think
you and what do you define as faith?
what is there was a definition I heard, that faith is believing in things when logic tells you not to. I suppose. I mean, because faith is faith. It is not based upon proof, and it's not based upon any sort of evidence. That's why it is called faith. So when we don't know, so faith is a trust in the unknown to me. I suppose we can check
Or a
the
higher
actual.
power, or a
Yeah, for
higher
a higher
power.
power. If we have faith in a higher power, I would say that might be very good for the health because of what it does for your mood. You know, to have this comfort, and if you have any sort of comforts at all to help you get through this, or any sort of faith in something other than what's happening all around you at the time, you know, that should
In
help a
other words,
person.
in other words,
Yeah.
if you believe that
Well,
there
I
is
yeah.
a mystical
Mhm.
experience of whether that is religion, your specific faith, or
Mhm.
whether that is the faith of your friends praying or meditating over your
Right.
body, there is a mystical experience happening there.
Well, it does take your mind off of the physical pain that you might be having, or the physical illness that a person might be having. And also, I think these positive thoughts, regardless of what they are, or what they're about, what sort of faith it is. These positive thoughts, I think, are important into helping your body make the proper healing chemicals. I do believe that there is a physiological reaction to having strong faith and to having a
I do
positive
too.
attitude. It really, a deeply positive attitude. I don't mean just to pretend, oh, I don't mean someone just being brave for the sake of others. I mean somebody who really does feel inside that it's going to be all right, even if, who knows. But the thing is, I have heard of things, and we have heard of this at times, where there are spontaneous healings that just,
Yes.
the spontaneous recovery. Now, it is rare, of course, but we do hear of them, and there is no explanation for it. And of
Right.
course, there's also the cases of some people having the same illness, getting the same treatment, and one recovering and one not. We're talking
Right.
genetics. But I do think that the attitude, the faith, a strong faith, because sometimes there are some people who wouldn't be walking around if they didn't have faith. Doctors will tell you that they have patients that no way should they be walking around functioning because of their illness, but they are. And it
Right.
is something that I can't explain it, but I do think it's important to have it. I think it makes a person feel stronger. I think it makes a person fight better for their life. And I think it's very positive.
I think that I remember that one thing that my mother said once, that as she got older, it was harder for her to believe in the fairy tale religious part of the religion she grew up in.
Hmm.
But on the other hand, spiritually, she felt without a doubt there was something out there that was greater than us, that, you know, I guess she feels that her longevity, her ability to have a youthful attitude is based on her faith in the good of man. You know, even though she sees the destruction, the evil, the um, the negative stuff that's happening, she still believes in that purity of man. And I think that for her, it gives her the reason to live. And I believe that, like you say, sometimes people are in comas and they'll
Hmm.
have a group of people doing Reiki or praying or doing group meditation. But it's almost as if the single focus of healing in a group of people can create some pretty mystical experiences. And whether it's the combined energy of people praying, meditating, doing Reiki healing, it still is a mystical experience, I believe. And
Hmm.
yes, it may have components to do with, of course, it must, with the mental capabilities of the parts of the brain that we do not use, that
Oh, yeah.
we seem to have no knowledge of. And I think we will have eventually in time, probably beyond our time frame. But my sense is that when those parts of the brain can be tapped into and are awakened, there's going to be some pretty phenomenal healings that are going to happen, but unfortunately also the negative of it. But I think that for the most part, one of the things that I was kind of brought to mind of is what is a mystic. Now the other part of this
Right.
is that there are people who are natural mystics. Now, says many people use the word mystic to indicate someone who is seriously and deliriously out of touch with reality.
Oh,
But as
really? Oh.
but as a student of religion, this person says the opposite.
uh,
Mystics are the ones who have actually gotten in touch with what is real. They have powers of receptivity, sympathy, and that are very, very acute. And they
mhm.
are porous and have the ability to be so open as to stretch beyond the usual small and protective ego, and often unusually courageous, and out of that wide and sometimes painful stretching of an ego that they find ethical opportunities. Now, I would say, and please understand, I am not, how do I want to say it? As a spiritualist, I believe in a combination of all faiths, but I would say there are many. I would say Jesus was a mystic. I would say Buddha was a mystic, and the mystical experience that they were able to tap into, whether it is God or whether it is something else, nirvana, they all have different interpretations. It is still one and the same thing, which is a greater, higher power. So, what are the kind of the traits of a mystic? Well,
Well,
one
no,
of the
I looked it
things.
up here
Yeah,
in the
okay,
dictionary
go for
while
it.
we were
Go for it.
talking. So we'll go with the basic meaning, which is a noun, the first one that they have here. A person who seeks by contemplation and self-surrender to obtain unity with or absorption into the deity or the absolute, or who believes in the spiritual apprehension of truths that are beyond the intellect. So, of course, the
Yes.
adjective would be mystical. And so that's one definition. And, you know,
Yes.
from the meaning initiated person, so interesting.
I thought that one of the things, and I found this on an Oprah.com, it says religion begins in the sensation that your life makes sense within a larger one. That you and the animals have a bond, that the trees and rocks and rivers are to the body of the world as your bones and hair and blood are to your body. And you
Oh,
understand, at least in some primal way, that your happiness depends on the happiness of the beings, whether you call it God is everything, or whether you call it in the beings around you. You may even realize ultimately that your soul participates in the world's soul. So if you go deep enough into yourself, you will come up against mysterious, creative forces. You
mm,
can't know yourself completely, and you may realize, again, as mystics have pointed out, that some of your problems stem from your resistance against that deep, unknown sense of energy and vitality. And if you could get out of the way of your fears and your
mm,
ego, who knows what you could become? The divine creator not only makes a world, but also creates a self. So in other words, that says to me that we are all we all have free will to create our lives as we wish them to be, and we all can create ourselves as we want to be. Of course, knowing that each and every one of us has genetic components we can't escape. One thing
mm.
I thought was really interesting was I heard, and actually I heard this on CNN, some guy was saying that the newest study is that Holocaust victims from the Berlin, from the Judaism and the Nazis and everything, Holocaust victims have carried a certain amount of anxiety and stress onto their chromosomes
Mm.
that are genetically passed to further generations down the line who have no idea why they may feel this sense of anxiety and doom without realizing that it may come from somebody from the Holocaust, and that each of
Yeah,
us carries a genetic component of the anxiety and the war survival and that are of our ancestors. So those of us
interesting.
who may have greater anxiety or greater sense of worry all the time may be actually have had this passed down from traumas that happen for survival sake
Mhm.
in another time, which I thought was interesting, and to me that's a mystical experience. It says one of the things on the Oprah site says you don't need to meditate for hours to swoon from absorption in the infinite. All you have to do is feel the rain pouring on you. You have
Mhm.
to take a walk in the woods to the point where you forget your daily routine and busyness of life. So there's so many of us and so many people that have excellent skills in meditation and trance. But I believe that what they're saying is that there are also people that find a natural ability to meditate taking a beautiful walk in the woods or in their yard or in their garden or feeling the rain on them, that puts them in the state of meditation to tap into that mystical experience.
Oh, sure. Everybody has their own way. And
Mm-hmm.
rather than go to a church, some people would rather take a walk in the woods or go to some place lovely in nature or a spot where they're always able to think and
Right.
meditate. And I used to have a spot like that when I lived I lived near a very nice park at one time in the burbs, and there was a big park that had a very nice part of the Des Plaines River kind of ran
I
into it,
remember the
and
Des Plaines River.
just very nice. And there was a spot where I would go down and sit in the park down in the catch basin where there were steps that were kind of like very old, but not maintained, just old bricks and stuff. I thought was pretty cool. It had a
Mm-hmm.
very old quality to it, the stone benches, and it's just old.
Mm-hmm.
And just stairs sort of like built into the side of the hill, of the grassy hill that led down further, where it's like there were swing sets and stuff, and it was just a nice place to be. And I used to meditate there very often, really. It was nice. I think a person should try to find a spot like that. Um, I still haven't been able to create one on my own property. I don't really have the property to do that with. But one of these days I will do that. I will have a spot reserved for sitting and just meditating.
Well, here's where I have to do a plug for my new revised book with Hay House Publishing called
Oh, it's
Gar-
revised.
Gardens of the Sisterhood Create a Mystical Garden. And one of the things that it's about is how combining the sounds of chimes and the
Mm-hmm.
sound and your favorite colors that soothe you. It doesn't
Sure.
have to be a big garden. It can be a
Mm-hmm.
small little garden that you just sit in and tune into your favorite
Oh, and with
colors,
kinetic
sounds,
sculptures.
and
Kinetic
sculpture.
sculptures. That's it.
Yes,
Nothing
yes.
huge, just something really nice, and they just kind of like it's like an ever-changing shape. Just kind of,
Oh,
you
oh,
know, I would love
right.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Kinetic wind sculptures are beautiful, as well as I believe that, if you have a sculpture that makes you feel wonderful. For myself, when I
Oh, you have
began,
beautiful sculptures outside,
when
and
well, I'm really
yeah.
into art, and it's my downfall
Mhm.
because I love huge sculptures. And for
Oh yeah.
me, when I first left, you know how it feels when you leave your 9 to 5 job, right? And you
Hmm.
finally go and turn into an entrepreneur and you are your own boss. I remember creating my mystical gardens, and the first thing that I did was find a 5 foot tall cement angel, and it flew in on a boom truck one day and plopped into a garden
But I
that
love
was
those
surrounded.
types of things.
I
Yeah.
know.
I
So,
love garden statues. I think I want some small, like just small, realistic sort of small rabbits just to tuck under a few
oh yeah,
areas, to sort of like put them on the patio.
Yeah.
And also, I still want. I would like to have at least one angel on the property. I think that would be nice, but probably not a huge one, though. I think I would.
Well,
I,
living
I would never. Yeah, someplace.
yeah, living in redneck country as I
You can get
do.
away with a lot more. Actually, you can.
Well, actually, living in redneck country, you do not get away with
Oh, it depends. Yeah.
banners, flying banners of eyeballs. No, no, no.
Well, it
You do
looks
not get
kind of.
away
Yeah,
with
I think
with.
that freaks people out. Yeah, that does tend to
Yeah,
freak people
you
out, I
have to be
suppose.
very,
Yeah.
very. Uh, you have to be very diplomatic about the way that you create your mystical experience in your garden
It
so
has
that
to look
it
pleasing.
is
It has to look
it
pleasing
has
to
to
the
look
eyes so
pleasing to
that
you but
people
to
can enjoy
others
it.
around you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And when
exactly.
it's enjoying, then it sends a message of peace and
Hmm.
love. And even Christians or Jews or Muslims have to say that everybody loves a peaceful neighbor, and
Oh, yeah.
nobody wants to deal with a neighbor that shoves their religious ideas on anybody. And I would not ever shove my religious beliefs on anybody, nor would I ever try to hang a flying eyeball or even a neon sign saying psychic. I would never do that because that to me is just as bad as a
No,
person knocking on your door
no.
saying,
You
let's
know,
talk about.
I have seen it, but usually it's in like in a downtown area, like like it's in the center of town where there are
Yeah,
businesses. And I
you
go,
can get
that's
away with
fine,
it.
it's fine. But do
Yeah,
you really
yeah.
want this next door, the eyeball in your? It's sometimes it's. Oh, I mean, actually, in this old place, it is difficult to make it look nice sometimes, but we
Mm,
do work at it, and it takes. It's we're a quarter property, so you have to rake and try to make the place look nice. And I do like
right.
to put up the holiday lights, and I try to make it look like
I
a
love it
warm
too.
and inviting place. Keep the weeds away from the front stairs. Try to keep it well lit
Yes.
and create this warmth and beauty. And we do have a few things, but I'd like to have a few more artifacts out there. I think some more interesting things besides the bird feeders and bird baths. I think I'd like to have a Saint Anthony bird bath.
Oh, wouldn't that be
That would be
awesome?
kind of cool.
I was looking at some
Yeah,
beautiful
or
St. Anthony's that were like in my mother and sister's neighborhood. A house was abandoned that had a 6 foot St. Anthony,
oh
cement
wow,
Anthony on the front.
yeah,
And
3 foot
nobody,
make me
nobody
happy.
knew. Yeah, she wanted so bad to ask if she could have that, but she didn't know how to go about it. And finally, somebody moved in and had it removed, and nobody knows where it went. So
Oh dear.
sometimes you just have to be gutsy and you have to let your ego be a little bit. Go out there and just ask if you see a beautiful sculpture, religious
Say,
sculpture,
yeah,
or
where's this going? Why is this here? You're not getting rid of this, are you? Because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like you're not going to throw this away.
they
God, Lord,
did.
no.
They did.
Um,
Uh,
I would not. I don't like to see stuff like that being put out for. I mean, put it out for someone to take it away personally and own. Yes, certainly give it away. But to just toss it out, it's art. It's even if it was pressed out of a mold, it's still a unique thing. I don't think there's a whole lot of those, especially if it's old.
no,
So
no.
yeah.
And you could put your bird feeder and you could put your
Oh
peaceful
sure.
things around it, and
Yeah.
it all coincides with the mystical experience of love, peace, and it's got to help your healing process.
Oh, I think
Um,
so. I think so.
you
Sure,
know,
it creates that feng shui. I think if you have
yeah.
this done
Well,
right.
feng
Yeah.
shui is really important if you're going to be into sculptures, because
Oh
there's
yeah.
nothing worse than somebody that tries to put all of their favorite things in one spot,
Oh,
and
you
before
can't.
long,
Yeah.
you look like a spiritual garbage dump. You have to remember that it's important to use feng shui, and so um,
I'm sorry. I
each
just I dropped a card on the floor, and then I bent over, and
Which
then
one was it?
everything just
Which
fell
one?
off my head.
Which card? Which card
Oh,
fell?
the card that fell on the floor is the Hermit.
The,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, the search to
interesting.
answers. The search to answers, life's problems,
Yes.
it is
Yes.
actually, it does recommend that if you have such, we're talking about matters of faith. I think it's very appropriate, really.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
it does say here that sometimes you have to withdraw, and the guy with the lantern, he's looking for his lanterns. Actually, funny thing is, the lantern bearer in the Hermit card is what I was using for my uh, name, I suppose, on Keen. I was going by the lantern bearer. I didn't want to call myself the Hermit.
Get out
But
of here.
basically, this card it is about um, it's about it's about meditation, basically, and finding your own answers, and just shutting out the other voices for a time, so that you can hear them and make your own decisions and actually hear voices of comfort, get some solace. And I always believe it's good to have some sort of a belief system. I think it helps. I think it helps chemically. I think it helps health to have some sort of a positive outlook.
Yes.
Um, if faith helps, then I say that's great. Sometimes it's just a lot of other things that help. Just being positive. Um, we all know that a bad mood and negative moods and vibes create certain dangerous chemicals, that toxins in the body, and we all know that medically. So yeah, I'd say it's great.
It says here are uh, nine traits of nine characteristics of the mystical experience. The first one is called the candle in the dark. And the best way to describe a mystical experience might be with an allegory. The ancient Hindu tradition um, has an interesting one. Imagine that you are in a completely dark room, and you've been told that in this room lives a very large snake. As you sit in the room, you can see its silhouette, and you feel great fear as you contemplate the potential for a bite. But one day, there is a flash of light which illuminates the room, and you see what you were looking for that looked like a snake is in reality a rope. Although the flash of light was momentary, it gave you a glimpse of the truth. So all of a sudden, your long held fear vanished entirely, and your experience in the room was never the same ever again. I have to, please understand, I am an old hippie, right? So I have to say that I
It reminds
almost,
you of something.
yes, it does. Back in the old early 70s, there were many of us that vision quested with uh, what I call hallucinogenics, not to get messed up, but to
No,
have a visionary experience. I can
spiritual
say that there were
experience of some sort.
moments. I remember
Yeah.
three things specifically. One was when there was five of us drinking wine from small, beautiful crystal glasses. And this one woman that looked like an angel put spit on her finger, and she went around and around the edge of the goblet, and it
Oh,
went
and she made it sing.
ooh, and
Yes,
we all joined
crystal.
her, and for
Hmm.
almost 20 minutes we all did this beautiful angel music, and it was the most
Hmm.
wonderful experience I have ever
Oh, I
had.
love doing that. I love doing that to my wine classes. I used to do that all the time. You just,
Yes. But
and just sit there and just.
you can imagine. The other
Oh
thing
yeah,
was
and actually
the
you'll have different tones too, I suppose, if you have different
yes,
amounts of wine in
depending
it.
on the level of the wine in the
Uh-huh.
glass.
And
The
if there's any differences in the
It's
glass,
kind
yes.
of like singing bowls.
Hmm.
Singing Tibetan singing bowls. But here we were all having this vision quest. The other thing that I remember that was another time was when um, I was just enjoying music, and most of my vision questing has been around audio music, but I remember that I had a flash of it was like the flashlight in the dark room. And all of a sudden, the answer to all life and to all things was there. And it went boom, and then the flashlight turned off. And I remember thinking, what? And then it was gone. But it was like for one momentary moment, some part of my brain that had never been used was able to see the entire secrets of the universe,
Did I
whether
ever
that
tell you the
was real or
dream I
whether it
had
was
about
not.
that? Actually, I did
No.
have a dream where it's very short. All I remembered was looking at a black screen with white
I'm sorry, your voice
typed
went out.
ink on it.
Say that again.
Typed. And
Say that.
oh, I saw everything. Okay, I was looking at a book and I saw the answer, what someone said, this is the answer to all things in the universe. And
Wow.
I saw in one sentence right there hanging in the darkness. And I remember
Wow.
thinking, of course. I thought, I'm going to remember this. And it got
And you
really
don't.
small. And as it got smaller, I couldn't remember what
I
the
know.
heck I was
It
looking
drives you.
at. And I thought, but it
It
was
is.
so simple. It was one simple sentence about
I
everything.
know. And that's the same thing. That's the same thing I went through. It was one thought, and
Yes, it
it
was
was
one
gone.
thought.
And it was like
Yeah,
you are allowed this this one glimpse of
I
a
wasn't
secret.
allowed to see it.
And that's it. I'm sorry, but you only get that one glimpse. And you got
Yeah.
that one glimpse.
Well, yeah, barely. I mean, my God, I can't even tell you what the first word was. It just, no, it
So
just, no, I think these things are just like wiped from our minds because we're just simply not ready for it
we're not
sometimes.
ready.
You
We're
know,
not ready.
no.
But um, I think that, you know, whether you vision quest through a deep religious faith or whether you vision quest through hallucinogenics, or whether you vision quest through meditation, or whether you vision quest through a healing circle, these are all moments that are of the mystical experience. And there are certain people that thrive on the mystical experience. The only ones that I really have a problem with are the fakers.
Oh, yeah.
The fakers, this is what used to upset me so much about churches, is that there were those people that truly felt their faith. And then there were the people that faked it. And
Mhm.
and and I always became so sad by how many more fakers there were than the
Well,
real
they drove
ones.
people away. There are people who
Yeah.
left the whole thing, just abandoned the whole notion just because of the betrayal of that one person that wasn't sincere. And I've always felt, whenever someone tells me that, I always say, well, don't let, people are flawed. Um, just because, they were attracted to the belief, the same system or whatever, the same faith that you were, doesn't mean that just because they are creeps and they happen to believe in, or pretend to believe in it. And it doesn't mean that other people are not sincere. It doesn't
Some
mean,
of the greatest series.
especially if you believed in it, why should you throw it away just because there was some jerk who didn't, right? So that's what I don't understand.
Some of the
Yeah.
greatest serial killers have hidden in a religious
Oh, yeah.
organization
Yeah.
simply
Yeah.
because it was a good place to hide. So
I'm
I
sure.
think that's why so many of your religious mentors, and it's interesting that you pulled the hermit or the hermit fell on the floor,
Yeah, it fell right out.
because a true religious belief and experience is not necessarily something that you need others to back you on. It is something you carry that helps you through life and helps you to face your days of life on this planet. And if you share that experience with someone, well, great. But do understand, with all organizations come the fakers. And the fakers do make things very, very tainted. Here it says, this is what a mystical experience feels like. It is like a flash of truth that releases you from your limited sense of self and gives you a taste of a reality that somehow feels more real. Plato recounts that Socrates had a similar allegory regarding the mystical experience. Suppose that you've been kept chained in a cave all of your life. Behind you blazes a fire, and next to you sits a row of other prisoners. All of that you and the prisoners know of life is the experience of watching the shadows dancing on the opposite wall to you, and the shared interpretations of what you see are like religion. However, by chance one day, one of the prisoner's chains breaks and he escapes into the outside world. At first, he's confused, overwhelmed, scared, but he also feels an immense sense of expansion, awe, and bliss. He is aware that he is experiencing a larger, more complete, and absorbing reality than what he could see within the cave of shadows, a hole in the hillside. His natural instinct is to return to liberate his fellow men. But after struggling back into the world of darkness and shadows, his attempt to enlighten his companions is met with ridicule, incredibility, and they accuse him of being crazy.
Wow.
So here's the thing. I do want to, before our show ends today, I do want to mention that there is sometimes a lot of skepticism by religions that believe that healers, true healing, was only meant for Jesus or Allah or
Yeah.
Buddha.
Yeah.
But please understand that there are people out there that have a natural chemistry and spiritual ability to be able to heal. Now, one of these, and we don't know for sure, there was a show called The Healer on TV, and his name was Charlie Goldsmith. And for 18 years, Charlie Goldsmith kept his healing ability out of the public eye. It has always been Charlie's intention to expose his work to multiple scientific studies, using himself as a guinea pig. It wasn't until after his first hospital study completed in 2013 by doctors in a hospital in New York that it became public. The study was designed to build a case for a double-blind study in the future, but it was published in 2015. Charlie is also the subject of a USA television series called The Healer, which premiered November 6, 2017, and I first saw it last year. And he goes into places where there are, people in pain, people suffering from disease, and he heals them. But as I told you, Joseph, the one thing for sure was two things. One, that those people who came to him convinced that it was all a sham never got healed.
Uh-huh.
They actually convinced themselves and cheated themselves out of a healing just by believing that it was not possible and it was all quackery. But for those that believed and had faith that maybe it was possible for someone to be able, and please know he was checked for little ear things like they have in some of these mega churches where these guys will say heal and they slap them in the forehead and all of a sudden they fall backwards and suddenly they can walk and things, and he knows their diseases.
I would certainly go in with an open mind. I wouldn't want to, what I'm saying? If you're in that situation and you don't, I think I'd say, well, yeah, I guess I would be open to that. Why not?
Mm-hmm. But the problem is that many people that watched the show that were devoted
so I
Christians.
guess that is having fun.
Yeah, but some people
and they just simply would refuse to believe. Yeah, well, that's a shame. That is a shame.
Some people believe that because he could heal, he had to be working with Satan.
Well, Satan heal people. If that's, it doesn't seem to be in sync with what they tend to believe, in the Christian religions about Satan. So I don't know. He doesn't sound like a very benevolent creature.
No, he was a very peaceful guy.
Yeah.
He was definitely. And he was not trying to say, look at me, I am something amazing. He was just a simple guy that could heal.
I think if I had that ability, I think I would do it on the sly. Just sort of do it, like just sort of like, I don't know, shoot out the healing rays as you're walking through, and just.
Well, his grandmother.
Not say anything.
One of the shows I saw was that his grandmother told the story of how when he was a little boy, she said that he was scared. He was shaking his hand and he said, my hand is so hot. And he was shaking it, and she said that she was saying, oh, honey, it can't be anything here. And she said her hand started burning when it was next to him, but it was a feeling of a tingling electricity. And that she had horrible arthritis. And she noticed that as she touched him, all of her pain went away. And she realized that perhaps this child has a gift, and she never made him feel special. She just said, you have a gift.
It's interesting that he felt that he took some of that, and his hand had gotten hot, as he took some of it. And I recommend a movie that came out in the late 70s or the mid 70s with Ellen Burstyn, about a woman who survives an auto accident and ends up widowed and crippled, but she finds that she has the power to heal over time. And she did heal herself too. It took a while, but then when it started to really get the ball rolling, things just started to kind of happen by accident, where she would accidentally, heal people. and of course she had to deal. And of course, the story is set in the South, so she had to deal with a lot of religion, and it's a very good drama, though. It's a supernatural drama, but that's not the point of the story. It's about the healing and the drama around it and her, and it's a very good movie, really. It's one of my favorites of that
What is it
nature,
called?
that theme. It's called Resurrection. And it
Okay,
came
so
out
those
in the
of you, those of
70s, yeah.
those of you who are interested in
It's a
stories
good
about
movie,
people with a
yeah.
gift,
It's
and it isn't it interesting how so many people that seem to have traumas in their life that
sometimes
somehow
that brings it
survive.
out. Yeah, sometimes
They
that
they
brings
have
it out.
they they come out with a gift, usually a
Hmm.
spiritual gift or a healing gift or something that allows them to be able to either use that gift or to just forget it and see it as something they want to
I
hide.
think I think it would be a wonderful thing to be able to do that. But like I said, if it's an uncommon thing, and I would do it. I think people who don't want to be bothered or harmed would probably do it on the sly, anonymously, without being known somehow. Um, but I think, but it is true that even medically speaking, humans heal better when they're being touched by other humans. So the skin contact, the body contact. If you had like when twins are born, or one of them's ill or very ill, or even other babies, sometimes they just put it next to another baby, let them touch, and then the other
Yes.
child begins to get well. That, and I think people, I mean, I don't think really we take the time to truly hold another person who is ill, to take your time and just embrace them and just hold them and meditate and just, you know, I think the contact between humans and the closeness is very important also.
Yes, it is.
So you combine that with that extra energy, that extra gift a person might have. You never know. You might have just a pinch of it, and if it does somebody that you love a lot of good, I think it's great. And you should, but
You
you
want
won't
to
know
give
until you try
you want to
it.
you want to give your final that prayer one more time before we close our
Certainly.
show, please.
Okay. I bring the cosmic forces into my body, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. I bring the cosmic forces into my being, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. I bring the cosmic forces into my being, asking for strength, protection, and guidance. Protect me with your white light. And then you imagine this wonderful shower of white light. You see it
Yes.
coming down around you, just coming down, and that will protect you.
And heal you.
But you gotta look where you're going. Yeah, it will heal
Yeah,
you too.
yeah, don't
Gotta
do
look
this
where
while
you're
you're
going.
driving.
Don't do that while you're
Okay, well,
driving.
Joseph, I want to thank you so much, and I'll see you
Well,
next
thank
week.
you. It's been fun.
I
Thanks.
always enjoy you, and I hope that you have as much fun putting out your Christmas lights as I have been.
I haven't
I
done it
had to
yet, but I
teach.
will.
I have a giant 11-foot bike that I decorated, and it came out looking like two eyeballs. So I had to
Oh,
really do some drastic changes.
well, we were
Okay.
just talking about the flags with the eyeballs. You got the two
Yeah,
eyeballs
I
out
know.
front.
I
There
had
you
to
go.
change it. All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
You're listening to AchieveRadio.com, the positive side of broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Ann Marie. Welcome to Achieve Holistic, Spiritual, and